In today's show, we discuss, does Campbell's law mean the doom of all societies?
And now, the TNT Talk Show, daring to go where other podcasts fear to tread.
Hello, I'm Tony Fasulo, and I share the stage with my esteemed friend and colleague, Tayo Boya. Tayo, hello, my friend, once again. I hope you're keeping safe and well.
What the hell, Tony? What you gonna do, eh?
Come on, you know what I'm going to ask you. Just preempt me. Just do it. Say
Yeah, no
hi.
problem. No problem at all. Hello, audience. I'd like to share with you.
No, please, not your famous or infamous man. Oh dear
I'm
Lord.
trying to get serious. Deliver these pearls of wisdom now. Don't. From Dr. Isaiah Henry Maguatamba.
Does he exist? Please, before you reveal his pearls of wisdom, does he actually exist? Is he a made-up character from you? Come on.
Nobody is brilliant enough to make up the wonderful Dr. Isaiah Henry Maguatamba. And he says in his book, The Legless Warrior Never Sleeps at Night, 1951, he says, the heart of the savage savannah quiets when the gentle baobab dreams. The heart of the savage savannah quiets when the gentle baobab dreams. Wow. Amazing.
Please enlighten us. What the hell does that mean?
Well, I knew, you've been asking me, and I thought, look, I've always expected you to pick it up during the show, but I thought this time I will anticipate what you're going to ask, and I'll actually explain it to you. It's very straightforward. Chaos cannot disturb the pure of heart. The man who has mastered himself is free from suffering. He can tolerate even the worst fates with equanimity and calm. That's what it means. You have to work on yourself, master yourself, be like the gentle baobab. Be accepting of the dreams of the gentle baobab, and you will be able to quiet the savage savannah. That's what it's. It's pretty straightforward, really.
Most of the audience now is switched off, going, huh?
Well, I don't know why they switch off to these pearls of wisdom. I mean, every week I deliver something that is life-changing information.
Yes, life-changing for who? No one understands the message.
I've just explained it to you.
Well, it makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Okay.
Anyway, let's move on with today's show. Now, we've got a interesting one today, but before we actually begin and reveal the topic, we have a mention from our sponsor. Yes, indeed. Boris the Brick. Now, for our watching audience, you can actually see this little character here. This is Boris the Brick. And for our listening audience, obviously you don't know what I'm holding up. It's a beautifully soft, squidgy brick. And it comes with a book. There's a book called The Adventures of Boris the Brick. You can find it on Amazon and other sellers. But the toy itself, if you look at this toy, this is Boris the Brick himself. He's a cuddly toy. Well, coming up to Christmas, we'll make a fantastic gift because he's squidgy and soft. All information about him can be found at boristhebrick.co.uk or boristhebrick.com, whichever you prefer, and you'll find information on how to purchase this wonderful toy, which will make a wonderful gift for a young one. Okay, enough of that. Let's move on with the show itself.
If it wasn't for the promise of my Ferrari, well,
indeed.
Remember, I've actually got that on air, so it's got it recorded somewhere.
Okay, right. Today's topic is, does Campbell's law mean the doom of all societies?
Right.
Now, this was your topic, Tayo. I mean, is it really this desperate doom of all societies, Campbell's law? Can you explain what it is first off, and why is it the doom of all societies?
Okay. There are two definitions I'm going to give. One is the formal definition, as might be found in an academic work of any gravity or seriousness. And it states this: Campbell's law states the more any quantitative social indicator is used for social decision making, the more subject it will be to corruption pressures, and the more apt it becomes to distort and corrupt the social processes it is intended to monitor. That is the textbook definition.
Okay.
But I thought, well, do you know what? Our audience might not be of a mind to
decipher that ramble.
Yeah, well, decipher is exactly, yes.
It's a bit like your whatever his name is.
Dr. Isaiah Henry Maguatamba.
Yeah.
Really, Henry.
Indeed.
I said Henry.
Really,
simple
Tony. Terms. You want me to do
mine,
it? Okay,
but I've come up with Tayo's far simpler definition. And I'm
okay.
quite robust in this sort of
Okay.
things. Campbell's law states that human beings are scumbags who will always try to dishonestly gain recognitions they don't deserve. Bam.
I had a simpler, more less condescending description of this term. It's when a measure becomes a target, it just ceases to be a good measure. And if we're using just single measurements to ascertain whether something has been achieved, then that measurement can be, as you've said, corrupted in some way and not used correctly, and so it becomes a farce. But your term is, if people apply Campbell's law, which they do, societies do it, why do you feel it's the doom of societies?
Right. I'd just like to point out that my definition is 2 lines long and took me possibly 14, 15 seconds to say, and yours was like a whole page and took you minutes to finish. So when I say a simpler definition, I think human beings are scumbags who will always try to dishonestly gain recognitions they don't deserve. Boom, that's it. Bada bing, bada boom.
I disagree. I think they're not scumbags inherently. They can become scumbags, but inherently they're not.
And that's a different argument. So we'll have to do that later. So why does it inherently destroy societies? Because in public discourse, you try to reach the greatest number of people possible, just like we've done. We had the formal statement of Campbell's law, which was a bit rigorous. I mean, it was rigorous. It's when you can decipher it, it does say what it wants to say, and only what it wants to say. But it's hard work, and a lot of people aren't willing to put in the intellectual hard work it takes to unscramble that sort of definition, if you like, or meaning, to extract meaning from this word salad. Then my very straightforward, no nonsense, bada boom, bada bing way of putting it, which just cuts to the heart of the matter, that would sell. That would reach the greatest number of people. So there is inherent in our society a bias towards simplicity. It is far easier to say, we will measure this, we will stop, bring down illegal immigration, or I don't know what you want to call it. It's illegal, what's the word I'm looking for? Invasion of all these illegals. We're going to...
That's an emotive word as well. Yes, illegal invasion.
Exactly. And then it cuts across. It cuts across what you want to say anyway.
Yeah, but it doesn't. You can't... An invasion would be an army.
I don't want to get sidetracked.
No, I know. But I'm trying to pinpoint that the term, you're inflaming the term in a way for an emotive answer, an emotive feeling.
Which really works because women, for example, emote. I was just reading about this afternoon. And when you're trying to reach women, you've got to get to the emotions. And the thing that I try to do, which is pure logic, that's not going to sell. That doesn't move them at all. So anyway, which is the what you call it?
But everybody knows that logic is the common sense method. But we humans are humans, after all. and we bring emotion into it, and that doesn't solve problems. I get that, but all big decisions are made, in quotes, hopefully emotionless, or with very little emotion involved. Otherwise you're pandering to people's feeling as opposed to factual information, which gets things done. But
I'm
going
actually
back to,
talking about selling the idea.
yeah, but
To sell the idea, you need to sell it on an emotional level,
that's if
and
you
hopefully,
expect people to take it on board and do something.
also sell it commonsensically with logic. But if not, the important thing, the objective there is to sell the idea. That's what's important. Now,
Yes,
how you
yes.
do it is secondary. Now, you make it simple enough for everybody to understand, and if you can make it emotional, whatever, whether you can achieve that or not is relevant. But if you can simplify it, then it is far more sellable. Yeah, sellable than otherwise.
I
But the
get
thing is
that, but
this.
who's that got to action it?
Sorry.
If it's governments that have got to action it,
Mm-hmm.
the selling point is only the end result for the public. So if they're carrying out the tasks, then it doesn't need to be watered down or simplified.
It probably wasn't initially. Initially, it probably was a two-track thing where, look, we will sell this to the public. What we're actually trying to do is this. But more and more people find that it is easier and easier to go along with just getting the metrics right. Well, all I want to know is how many students in your school pass their GCSE. I'm not interested in all the problems. I don't want to hear about the lack of teachers. I don't want to hear about the lack, that you have requested £10,000 to restock your laboratory, and we, the council, didn't pay it to you. I don't want to know all that. Don't complicate matters for me. Just tell me how many of your students passed. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
There's a
But
pressure.
yeah, there is a pressure. You're absolutely spot on. There's a pressure to deliver on that simplified, in quotes, target, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, which is what Campbell's law is basically alluding to. But most things, when they're using a simple target, you said it at the start of the show, can be and often are changed. You're using it as an indicator above all else, which isn't necessarily what it was originally intended for. I mean, you've hit on the head here about how many GCSEs does someone have to pass. But you can't just use that as the measuring stick. It's too simple. There are so many other factors behind the scenes, as you rightly know, being in that profession, that just how many people pass or not pass GCSEs doesn't make one school worse than another. Because you could be comparing a private school, which has got funding from the private sector and it's got the best teachers, the best equipment, the best facilities, and you're comparing to a state school, which is at the bottom of the tree, which has got nothing, and working hand to mouth almost, and so they're going to be more likely in maybe deprived areas of society. So you're going to get pupils turning up who haven't had the fortune of their peers in a private school. And then if you compare GCSE pass marks in that scenario, you're going to get a complete, what's the word I'm looking for? A complete,
Distortion.
yeah, distortion of the figures, and it's not relevant. So to me, I get simplification, but who's the end result here?
The
Who
end
wants to
result
know?
is lost in the noise. The end result goes out of the window due to societal pressures, due to the way human society works. End results become the measurements. The measurements become the end results.
Hmm.
Nobody cares any longer because it is easier that way. And when it is easier, human beings will take the easier path. We very,
Indeed.
very rarely go down the more difficult path because we are so enthused to go to do the right thing. We say, oh, that's a bit. Let's not, shall we just stick to the GCSEs? Yes, we know there are problems. What we'll do is we'll convene a meeting in 6 months' time,
Hmm.
and then we'll talk about it and we'll see what we can do. But just for now, the prime minister wants these figures, or the minister of education wants these figures available, and that's what we got to do, because in our jobs, man, that's what we got to do. So there we go. That's the thing.
Kick the can down the road.
Kick the can down the road where somebody else will handle it.
This is the short-termism, isn't it?
It's a short-termism, and it's since it's everywhere, and since somebody even formulated it, encapsulated it, formulated it into a law, so to speak, a social law, it's obviously seen often enough that it means something. It is. There's a reason why. What is it called? Stereotypes. There's a reason why stereotypes are stereotypes. There's a reason for it, and there's a reason why. Because look, what did I say? Human beings are fundamentally scumbags. Okay, so fundamentally,
I wouldn't go that far. But
well, this is the problem. Look at all the wars we have. Look at people, children being bombed to bits, and we're not saying anything. We're not doing anything. It should in a what's it? A good society filled with good people. That would be impossible. It should be impossible. It's very, very possible. It's true. It's actually happening. And most people are just like, yeah, well, sorry, not my business, until it becomes their business. So you're arguing about something. I'm saying, let's just call a spade a spade. If human beings weren't scumbags, and the measurements that you're mentioning, and this technique of just providing measurements that we can look at, that would inject into the conversation mechanisms for how to use those measurements to achieve end results that we're looking for. So there would be input to making good decisions. There wouldn't be the goal in themselves. It's not the goal to get our students to have all A stars or whatever it is. The idea is to deliver good education. And when you take it that way, when you take it that way, then we start looking at things like, well, last year they all got C's, but this year they're getting B's. They have improved. We have given them a better education, and they just stay with the C's. I'm talking about things like that. And in the literature, in the educational literature, there is a recognition that we should be doing things like this. But it goes beyond education. It's in law, it's in politics, it's in health. When you say the NHS must achieve X, Y, Z, is that improving the health of the people, or is it hitting metrics? So what are you trying to do? Are you trying to improve the health of people? Maybe what you say is, hey, look, man, you can't just sort of roll up to the NHS and go, oh yeah, heal me. You say, dude, you're overweight. We've told you about this before. What we're going to do now, we're going to tie you to the back of a lorry. We're going to drive you up to Coventry and drive you back down. We're going to do that 3 times a week until you've lost blooming weight. Let's do this thing, you know? And then people start getting healthier and healthier, and then, yeah, it's good. But otherwise, you're going to be like, oh, people aren't going to accept that. Well, you need to make Tyler the prime minister, and then also
no. I'm sorry, you don't get my vote.
Oh, you haven't even heard my solution to Campbell's lawyer. We're still talking about.
I mean, we're still talking about it, sure, but
is
it because just before you do that? Sorry, if I may, is it because it's accountable, gives accountability to governments in a simple term, and they then believe that they're delivering when it's a sticking plaster solution? Because if the government is shown to the results of Campbell's law, depending on where area they're being applied, they can sing and go, yes, we've hit our targets, or we've improved on the previous administration's targets because of this reason, rather than looking at the true problem, which is the holistic way of looking at it and seeing where the genuine improvements are. So these measures are simple. It gives them some accountability as far as the public is concerned, to say that things are improving. But are they improving, as you've said? Are they? Is the education in the example of the children, is it improving?
No, because the politicians like it. Well, I think you may have said exactly what I'm going to try to say. Politicians love it because it makes so-called achievement working towards producing good metrics, which is entirely different, very often entirely different from working towards solving the problem. So, for example, in crime, you might say we are looking at arrest rates. What are the arrest rates? Oh, the arrest rates are down. In the last government, we had 50,000 arrests, and that's not good enough because we know that crime is on the up and up. We have more arrests. So the police go, well, okay, well, that's straightforward enough. We'll just increase arrest rates. So you start getting arrests for, well, for talking too loudly. I think silly, silly things like that. Because what are we looking for now? Arrest rates. We're not trying to tackle the problem of higher crime. We just want to get that metric down so that the government can turn around and say, well, look, when the last government was in power,
Indeed.
we had 50,000 arrest rates, but arrests. Now we've got 70,000 arrests. We've really done something here about crime. No, they haven't done anything about crime. So this is what I'm saying. Economic indicators. When we say GDP is used as a primary measure of economic health, but by GDP, Russia is, I don't know what Russia is eighth, ninth, something by GDP. But by PPP, which is purchasing power parity, which is in your country, how much this basket of goods costs and how would you be able to afford it?
Mm-hmm.
Services, goods, services, getting your car fixed, buying a car, all the sort of
standard stuff.
Your standard of living. What is your standard? So this is PPP, the purchasing power parity. By that measurement, Russia is fourth largest economy in the world. But that doesn't suit our mob, because by that measurement, I think we're 12th or something. We've dropped out of the top 10th.
Wow. Britain, you're talking.
Britain, the UK.
I'd love to know what the American figure is. Are they still number one?
I don't think that. I don't even know. I think China's number one, but I'll look it up in the course. It's an interesting question. But back to our discussion. You can choose metrics there, can't you? You can choose GDP or you can choose PPP. The second that Britain does well by PPP, we're going to drop GDP like a hot potato.
I know.
Oh, GDP is so yesterday. No, it was PPP. Yes. That's what we've got to use now. And by that measurement, we're sixth, most best economy, sixth best economy in the world. Politicians will always use that. And then think about this. A politician is a leader or is someone who leads on a societal level. But if it works for that kind of a leader, why wouldn't it work for a leader in a company? Why wouldn't heads of department want to use it? Why wouldn't people in leadership roles anywhere want to use it? Of course they do.
They do.
Because it makes life easier. But how does that help society? Short answer, it doesn't. That's why I say it will lead inevitably to the fall of society. Now, not all societies practice this. Some societies really get down to the nitty-gritty and they are aware. I should be able to give you I will in a second, because I forgot to look it up to get the names ready. Which societies move away from that and they are more interested in the nitty-gritty, the actually underlying problem.
Indeed.
And they try to deal with that. So in such societies, it's not inevitable that they will fail. But where we start but eventually they will fail, because eventually somebody will come along who wants to take the shortcut and doesn't want to do it the hard way. And this and that. I think Singapore is one of these places I'm thinking about where right now they're doing it the hard way.
Yeah. I can give you a couple of examples of this very metric that you're referring to in corporate life. I mean, there was I'm not going to name companies or anything like that.
Go on.
No. In the past, there was an example, a very interesting example where we had there's an individual came into the company and his remit was to cut 10% off the company's spend. Okay, So his remit was so in other words, use
Company's expenditure.
Yeah, their spend of what they put out, 10%. So his simple solution was to get rid of the bottom 10% of staff.
Oh,
Yeah. And he met the criteria. He got a tick, he got a huge bonus. Left the company in tatters because the bottom 10% of the people that actually do the work, the people above them are managers that instruct the people to do the work. That's tends to what happened. So he got rid of the bottom 10% of the company
I
because
was
they were an
expecting you to
easy.
say he got rid of accounting or something, but anyway,
No,
more or
no,
less.
across the board, 10%. So most departments lost
Who
lost
cleans toilets and stuff?
well, 1 or 2%, 1 or 2 people in every department lost, 1 or 2 people were lost minimum in
Right.
every department.
Putting a
So
lot
that,
of stress on everyone else.
awful, because everyone else had to take up the slack because the work still needed to be done. So rather than everybody having wiggle room to look at things, everyone was now almost flat out. So instead of looking up and looking at things to fix, everyone was so busy shoveling coal, things were getting missed. And that actually, over a longer period, that became even worse. And the company started to falter because that bottom layer was removed too quickly.
Mm.
And so but the point is that guy came in as a consultant and got his bonus because he did what he said on the tin and got his tick and left. He was only in a short period, but the repercussions,
Chaos manager,
yeah,
he
yeah,
left.
repercussions. He did what he did. He's brought in for that role, did what he did, and left. Got paid and went, but he left a longer term damage. And this is the problem with Campbell's law. If in simplicity purposes, if it's only looking at a metric, one metric, and that's what you're measuring against, it's fallible in many, many cases
Mm.
because it's a single indicator that people can manipulate. And I'm not going to say scumbags because that's your word that you believe humans are. But if you're under pressure and you have to hit a particular target, you will look for shortcuts and quick fixes because you're under pressure. Whereas if you're not been put under pressure, you as an individual may look at the actual solution and look at it with objective eyes to see what's the best form of action. But when we put ourselves under unnecessary pressure based on Campbell's law with one set of metrics, then it can be abused. And this is what's happened.
I wonder what would have happened if your consultant had come back to the company and said, the board of directors on the first three highest paid individuals here account for 10% of the
well, they
expenditure.
probably did.
So
income wise,
I tell you what, and everything is good. But I don't think he'd be around for
think
very
that they
long.
were exempt from this figure. Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? You might actually know, you might actually know what the problem is, but you can't solve it. The corporate culture is such that it can't be solved. I know exactly what's wrong with British education. I know. I think we all do. There's no teacher who can't, apart from the really, really woke ones, the really liberal sort of milk of the university's education system is still wet on their lips kind of people. They haven't been in the industry long enough. Apart from those type of people, everybody else knows exactly what's going on.
Go on then, enlighten us, because I'm dare saying our listeners and I don't know what would be the solution if it was your choice.
Well, we have to reinstitute a culture of discipline
and respect.
Discipline and respect. And there isn't one now, and no one is learning anything because they don't have to learn anything. If the children don't feel like learning, they're left to their own devices. Well, most children don't want to because they don't understand how important it is to learn. So they don't want to, and then no one makes them, so they don't.
Can I just add something there, just very quickly again? Sorry to interrupt here. I'm mindful I've done it a couple of times already, but aren't children supposed to be guided by adults? That's the fact that they're children.
Yes.
So can't adults guide children for their benefit?
Yes. But how? How? Say what you're trying to say.
I'm trying to
Black and
say
white.
is if you know that it's because most adults, and we are going to say 99.99% of adults know what's best for children because they've lived it, they've been through it, they can look through their own experience and own wisdom. So they can guide them and say, well, look, you need to do this because it's going to be for your benefit.
Mhm. And
But
then the
we
child says no, then what
no.
happens?
Then in the olden days, like me, if I said no to my parents, my dad would have whooped me
Yeah.
and I
But you
would
can't
have
do that now.
I can't do it. I know that's the problem.
Yeah. So I've told you, this is the thing, that the system itself is broken. It can't be fixed. Let me be honest with you. The UK is done for. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a British citizen. It's done for. You can't stop it.
Is it just the
It has
UK?
happened before.
Is
Oh,
this
the
where
West. The West.
the doom element has come into
The
it? Would
West.
you
In the
believe?
West, it's the West is done for. You know, it had its time in the sun. Bada boom, bada bing. What are you gonna do? You know, you're just you handed it out. It's going to come back to you, and you're going to have to live with that. And it happens in every society. The time will come when things just decay and just that's it, really. And I thought we could stop it. I'm want to go. I went. I've spoken to a couple of people. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's start a school. But at the end of the day, when I thought about it really hard, I thought it's not going to make any difference. I was going to use emoluments, sort of like bribery. You know, have a system where students earn points. So they know, because when I went to school, when I was in prep school in donkeys years ago, decades ago, I didn't know what I was doing in school. Nobody ever explained it to me. Seriously, I didn't know why I was going to school. I didn't even know when tests were coming up. I just walk into the classroom when there's someone to stick a test in front of me. How was I going to pass? I didn't know what was going on. Now, I think a lot of students are like that. They don't
Yeah.
get what they're doing.
Mhm.
Now, if you have things that you want to do, what you want a PlayStation, all these cost points. So when you come to class, you've got to work towards getting your points, and then you get your. So now you know what you're doing. Now you're working towards. You get the concept of hard work and reward.
Yeah.
I
Rather
mean,
than giving them money, you're giving them points towards something.
correct. And
It's an
I was
interesting
thinking to
angle.
myself that in the long run, that culture of, hey, no, I can't go and mess around with you. I'm only 300 points off getting my day
Yeah,
trip
yeah, yeah.
to Chessington Zoo, whatever it is. And you got the carrot. You don't necessarily need the
The
stick.
stick. Hmm.
So
I
that was
like
my
that. That's actually a really, really good idea. And that's actually something missing in society. That's
absolutely.
actually brilliant because if
Oh, thank you.
no,
My
I have to
Nobel
I
Prize,
applaud you.
please.
That's actually really, really good because that's what's missing in school. Because at the minute, there is still some pressure for kids to go to school from parents because parents will say, you need to go to school, get ready, go to school. But when the kids are in school, do they need to learn? Well, maybe if they respect their parents, if they respect whoever's looking after them, they may do it because they feel they should for their own benefit. They don't know, perhaps,
I don't know.
but this idea of incentivizing the education and then giving them reward and recognition, that's really good. But isn't the society already past that point where we praise people just for being there as opposed to
Precisely.
achieving anything?
Precisely. If you get a medal for participating, then the person who won a medal for winning doesn't feel what feelings do they have? Everybody got a medal.
Mm.
Who really cares whether you get a medal or not? But you can't hurt anybody's feelings because it's a safeguarding issue, which is life is going to hurt your feelings a lot harder
Indeed.
if we don't prepare you for it. But
Indeed.
there we are. And going back to our topic,
Yeah.
I did say to you that I have constructed. Is that the word I'm looking for? Let me just find it here. Yes. Mitigating Campbell's law. This is my invention. And to
Okay.
illustrate it, think about a batch of new recruits.
Where?
army, anything.
Okay,
Back
yeah,
to new
yeah.
recruits. Yes, army recruits. You explain a numerical system that assigns excellence based on the amount of time it takes a recruit to cross an obstacle course under fire.
Okay.
All right, first person gets 100 points, and the next person gets 98, like this, right? However, you actually shoot real bullets at the recruits,
Okay.
and that will encourage them to stop faffing around
But if you're
and and to achieve real results
yeah,
of staying alive.
indeed.
Because that is one heck of an inducement, far more than any silly numerical. Because on the battlefield, this is it. It is a
But
yes or no situation in battle.
but in the army, you can't use Campbell's law because that's all well and good. Your first one getting across gets 100 and the time element. So if you get across in this time, you get this points this time. What should also be, this is where Campbell's law can't work in that because the whole point of the army is that you watch each other's back. So you should also get points. That's why Campbell's law can't just work with one metric. It has to be multiple. So yes, get across this dangerous area in the shortest possible time. But if you help your colleagues get across as well, you get additional points. And somehow they need to figure out how that would work in that scenario.
That is an excellent point that I hadn't considered. And just hoofing it and going along, an ad hoc solution would be if you make it to the end of the course, you can run around and touch one of the shooters on the shoulder, and that shooter has to stop shooting. And that way you've helped your fellow men, and that way you get extra recognition or something. But you have to survive the bullets. I mean, so this is a very real world example, and
okay,
and this
extreme, but
this well,
I was thinking
what
of
it
more
did was
mundane in other
I've
industries.
got it.
Oh, okay. Let's hear this.
So I've, by the way, that is called that I formalized it as Tyler's mitigation of Campbell's law.
Okay.
Tyler's
Very good.
mitigation. Yeah, thank you. Education.
Okay.
Bring back corporal punishments.
Okay. But that's just bringing the stick rather than the carrot.
But for students and teachers.
Hey?
So for each test, assign 10 lashes of the cane. If the students as a whole achieve a better than average score in the test, the teacher receives 10 lashes of the cane. If the pupils fail to better the average score, they each get 10 lashes of the cane. You see, everybody gets serious. The teachers are serious. The students are serious. Education, the level of education just skyrockets, man.
I'm not sure that one. I think you'll get a lot of dropout teachers. I think there has to be incentives.
If you're a teacher now, like Taya, for example, and go, "Ooh, I don't want to do that," you get a knock on the door saying, "We don't know what the hell you think you're doing, but you should be in school." 10 lashes of the cane. Everybody gets to school by 10 o'clock. And you'd be amazed. All of a sudden, all this, I'm late. It's all gone.
Well, there is a more granular way of actually achieving this.
Oh, good.
Because what happens is that the failing is more to do with how we compensate industries. Because if everyone, and I mean everyone, was paid based on performance other than the hours they put in, then that would certainly change things. Because you think about it, right? Okay, if you
they've tried that, it failed.
They've tried it.
They've tried it. It's another single metric of Campbell's law. It's a single metric. You get paid more. So what happens is people start, and they teach the students what to say. They actually tell the students, "Hey, answer to number 2 is B. Number 3, everybody," because they want to get paid more. It's a terrible idea. It won't work. You have to have the brilliance, the Nobel Prize winning brilliance of Tayo's mitigation mitigation thingy. What did I even call it? Mitigation law, whatever I called it. Right? Is that you set up a dynamic where two parts in the system are opposed.
Yeah.
Constant. You set up a constant opposition within any system that you're measuring, and there can only be one winner, and there must be a loser. So each person strives their best to be the winner. That's the told you it was brilliant.
It is good. It is good.
But you do need a fascist state though to make it. You can't do it in a democracy, but fascism works to some degree. And now politics, for example. In fact, before I share politics with you, because I got a better one, pilot training.
Go on.
Okay. The thing about pilot training is that you have these. The pilot has to attend these courses and go on these flight simulators, and then he has training.
They have to have air miles in the sky.
Air miles. Well, yeah, I can't just go from simulator to just I'm a captain. Your air miles, which again is metric, and then he's 5,000 on the 747 Type C, this type of thing. And then you have your flight checks where there's an actual test. Sorry, not test pilot. Training, flight test. I don't know what it's called. The flight pilot, the guy that monitors you and is ticking stuff off and how did you do. So all that, you have all that to go through, which is all very good. It's all, metrics. But I think if we had a little bit more robust way of doing business, like a Tiles kind of way of doing business, what we do is first we'll bring back strict gender roles in commercial flying. Pilots are men, women are flight attendants. They're day one. And there's a reason for that. Tiles mitigation of Campbell's law works here by ruthlessly dealing with commercial airline pilots. It's not for a woman can be a pilot of private jet, whatever she wants. That's nobody cares. We're talking about commercial airlines now, okay? Commercial airline pilots who cause injury or death but themselves survive the crash. Such pilots get exactly 2 and only 2 chances. The reason is they've only got 2 testicles.
Oh, good grief.
We have every country has somebody called a Grand Inquisitor. The Grand Inquisitor smashes one testicle with a sledgehammer, that is. And listen, and then you have a ceremony. Being
serious for a minute.
Hold on. And then you have a ceremony called "Get Your Shit Together or Else." This ceremony is attended by all the pilots in that airline. All of them must be present. And then when the Grand Inquisitor is finished and the person is healed, this ceremony is held, and the Grand Inquisitor looks like this, goes to the person and goes up and goes, "Try that shit again. Let's see." I have a feeling that all of a sudden, all the pilots are going to be really, really serious about getting their plane safely to where the hell they're going. If they hear a single, nowadays, pilots will rock up to a plane, hear something, and go, it'll probably be all right. But when you've got your nuts on the line, they go, "Look, I'm not going to go anywhere until somebody has a look at that." See, all of a sudden,
they don't do that. They don't just rock off. They don't.
Oh, I watch dozens of air crashes, dozens.
Well, you're a bit morbid in that respect.
Well, I watch dozens. I don't think there's an airline crash you can discuss that I can't discuss with you right off the bat.
I don't actually want to because I still fly. So no, I'd rather not.
Yeah, but I know what the pilot didn't do and what the series, because it's never a single point of failure. Never ever. It's goodness. Always a series of things that you think, well, why the heck did you So
that's why the checks that they do now are randomized. Did you know that the forms of all the ticks that they have to sign off is all different?
I would never have thought of it, but the instant you said it, I just thought, that's brilliant. You have to look at each single one.
Exactly.
You can't just do it
because that's what was happening. It was because people were getting too complicated. You're going, oh yeah, tick, 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 tick. No, because some need a tick, some need a cross, some need a tick. So you have to read them, and it's all random every time. So they don't. It's not even in the same place, and that was done to ensure that people weren't just ticking the boxes. Yeah.
I'm annoyed at myself for not thinking of it. By the way, one last thing: the CEO of every time there's a crash that kills people, the CEO loses one toe And after 10 toes, they must resign.
10 toes? They should resign after one.
Well, that's up to them. If they want to hang around for another one, I'd have thought after the first one is smashed to bits, they'll be like, I'm out. But some people are tough.
This is fascism at its best, isn't it? This is Tayo fascism.
But I don't you suspect that it will actually work? I mean, it'd be hard to pull off. But if a society went along with it, I don't think we'll have plane crash. I think seriously, it would be something external
But
like a
aren't
bomb or
law?
something.
You see, the thing is, if you have no rules at all, that's a free society. But then you're going to lawlessness and anarchy. So even some laws curtails people's freedom. So you could say, well, as soon as some laws are instigated, you are being controlled in some way. So you could say, well, that's fascism to a nth degree. So each society has laws, and as more laws are brought in, old ones aren't got rid of. Each country is becoming more fascist by the laws that are introduced because it's just adding to additional laws,
Yeah.
and each one is curtailing people's freedoms. So everybody is going to fascism anyway because our freedoms are being eroded because no one
All the
takes
time.
laws away. No one takes old laws away. They're still there. They just add to them, don't they? And this is part of the problem. We are going to a fascist system. Granted, some of them are woke fascist. How weird is that? But it is because you're forced into behaving a certain way based on a woke agenda. So it's a fascism by woke, which is really weird. But that's
Can you
another
explain what you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that we're going to get to a situation where, for instance, if you go to extreme woke agenda,
What is a woke
it's
agenda? Just imagine I don't know. So because I
okay.
think you might
Well,
have lost.
where that we no longer have male and female roles. You've just got human roles. And that's what it will be, even though we are different between the genders. But that won't matter because the woke agenda is basically saying that genders do not matter, so that
Okay,
everyone will be forced to be just a human, which is technically, if you think about it, is right. But
a woke agenda is an agenda that pursues the destruction of all distinctions, because every distinction leads to an oppressor and an oppressed. Every time you make a distinction in humans, one side of that distinction will be the oppressor class, and the other side will be the oppressed. So a woke agenda is trying its best to get rid of all discriminations, all forms of discrimination. So men and women, black and white, tall and short, and whatever, fat and ugly, slim and
there's
handsome.
nothing.
So yeah, they don't want. So this is why fat shaming is because
Yeah,
you can't
there's
do that.
nothing. Yeah, we have
There's
nothing.
nothing, right? So with
But
that in mind,
that's a
how does that?
fascism.
How is that? Sorry.
That's fascism.
Well, it is. So you were saying that it's not. I was. How do
No,
you?
it is. It's woke
I thought you
fascism.
said. Okay, you said that's weird though. Why would it be weird? Because to me, wokeism is fascist anyway.
Oh, okay. But you were saying that you need a fascist state to implement some
Yeah,
of
a
your
fascist state. To
recommendations.
me, I don't know. I'm not a political scientist, although I talk like one often enough. But I believe that fascism is a system where the state is the sole authority,
Yes.
and that individuals have basically zero authority in that
Yeah, but
state.
if rules and laws are brought in and you're adding and
Each
adding
time,
and adding and
each
adding
time
and
you,
adding,
you're
yeah,
moving towards
you're
fascism.
moving to that. So we
Absolutely.
are. But then there's a steer, which is what I'm saying. If you can have a fascist in the old system, or you can have a fascist which has got a woke agenda, which
Agreed.
so that's what we're at. So you're heading into a fascist state. All countries are, by the mere fact that they keep adding to the pile of laws.
I've got
But
something for you,
go on.
and it does kind of dovetail towards this Campbell's law. If we look at driving fast, I've got yet another letter, by the way, from yet another blooming council saying I was driving at 35 in a 30 zone.
Yeah, but
Actually,
you
in
have a
all
problem with
honesty,
your foot though. You have a
no,
brick
to
tied
be
to your
honest, it
foot.
was in Wellingborough, and all the roads are pretty stupid over there. It looked to me like a 40 zone. And there were no signs. So I wanted to go to court and say that you got to give me signage. Not everybody lives there. I thought it was a 30. I thought it was a 40. It's near an industrial estate. What the heck? If you know Wellingborough, it's going up to that blooming prison that they've got. If you know Wellingborough, yeah,
I do know that area.
You think it's a 40?
You would, because normally most industrial estates are 40 unless otherwise stated.
And there's no otherwise stated.
Sign. No. You've got a case.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm zipping along. I saw the guy. I was like, oh, what's he doing here? Anyway, I looked down, 35, I'm fine. Then I get to him, I got a blooming letter. I'm like, what? Anyway, so we've got these things. Now, what I would say is this. I want to live in a society where you have signs, and those signs are recommended speeds, not the law.
Well,
we recommend
signs,
that you do 20.
Just to clarify, the signs are not a target.
I know they're not a target.
They're not a target.
The minimum.
It's not. It's the maximum. You can go any speed below that other than on a motorway. But if it's a normal road, they're not a target.
I know that.
Okay.
But I'm saying that that all our roads, all our speed signs should be recommendations. However, if you hit someone, if you have an accident, we will throw the book at you if you're going over that sign. So you take responsibility for your own actions.
Yeah, but nobody takes responsibility anymore.
But I'm saying then we're going to move towards that where you take and you'll be forced to take responsibility for you want to do 16 and 20 zone, do 16 and 20 zone. You hit someone, that's it. You're probably going to prison for 15 to 20. Because at that speed, you're going to hit a little child, that child's going to die. You're going to go away for...
You're not going to... You see, this is where being proactive is. That's why they instill the laws they do. Because the law says you can't take responsibility. So we're telling you, not recommending, we're telling you this is the speed limit. So you can go as fast as you like up to that limit, but it's a limit, and we're telling you that
because we
humans, but we humans are bad at responsibility. We are.
Well, that's because nobody enforces it. My parents enforced responsibility on me. There was no negotiation. You just said you get a whooping from your dad.
Yeah.
You didn't negotiate. You did something wrong, and you come up to you took your licks. End of story. Really. We can bring that back.
I think we should.
And Campbell's law will, in some cases, won't be necessary any longer. We will not necessary. Sorry, we won't fall foul of Campbell's law because we'll be dealing with the actual issue. The actual issue is speeding recklessly. It's not speeding. It is speeding recklessly. Now, I like zipping along, but I know when I'm in a school zone. I know when school's out or school's just going back in. I'm not going to go zippy, because you never know when the kid is going to go running across this.
Some people...
Those are the ones that we need to catch and punish and probably bring by the guillotine, cut off their heads, cut off... You know what? You only have to... This is the funny thing, Tony. You always laugh. You only need to do it to one or two. And as I always say, I'm not trying to be racist or anything. Do it to one pretty little white girl. Everybody gets the picture. If you kill a pretty little, everyone's going, she was so pretty. Why would you do that? You say, because it's the freaking law. And you go, okay. Then everybody just got, you know what? School zone, calm down. Okay, you've gone past the zone. Open road, hit it. Go for it. You hit, you have an accident, you're going to have a problem. Drive carefully. It's not the speed.
Should this be clarified more rather than just assumed?
What do you mean?
Well, maybe in a lot of cases, we should go back. I mean, as we're using the example of driving in this case, shouldn't it be emphasized to the driver? Because obviously anyone has to go and pass the test, they've got to have instructions. And at that point, as part of the test, like by the way, if you don't follow the rules of the road, you will be thrown into prison. You could kill. So it's spelled out like my father would tell me when he looked me in the eye and I did something bad. I go, he said, you do this, sonny boy, and you are in trouble. And I knew then, oh my God, there's no mess in here. So I think that maybe is something that might need to be instilled in people who just pass, and they get told about it often. It's just reinforcing it. And the same with anybody.
I'm saying that with Campbell's law, that a 20-mile-per-hour road sign is a metric that is being measured, but the actual problem is reckless speed, which is not being addressed. You're just using a metric, trying to slow people down.
But by and large, it works.
Well, I slow down when school's out, by which I mean the children. But
what's the alternative? Take away the speed limit?
No. You leave it there, but it's advisory.
And everyone will go, I'm a good driver, I'll go faster.
Well, I wouldn't, you see.
I know, but that's you.
The reason I wouldn't is because you might think you're a good driver, but you hit someone, the end result is going to be unpleasant.
I get it, but there's always those
I trust people.
Society.
No, I trust people. You don't. I trust people that one or two will be made an example of, but that example would be so onerous that everybody else would just get the picture. You won't have to.
Well, that's the problem. It's the punishment will not match what's happening, because if the punishment isn't as onerous as you've mentioned, then people will go, oh, well, if I get done, I'll only have a fine.
A fine?
Yeah.
Oh, no one's talking about it. No.
But if you make the punishment something that's worthwhile, like you said to me off air, you never mentioned the guillotine. Okay.
What?
The guillotine as a solution, but you've mentioned it during our show.
No, hold on. That's because you're wrong. I said I'm never serious about kill them all. I didn't say. I often say, kill them all. It's satisfying. There's something in my stomach that feels good. You know what? Kill them all. But I never mean it. Not seriously.
Okay.
The only time I think you should actually execute anyone is with treason. Did I mention that? For treason.
No.
Well, yeah, for treason.
Okay.
You kill people for treason because it's the same as sending people to war. You send someone to war, you know that he or she could die. Right? Yeah. So it's a sacrifice for the state. So when I'm saying now, bring back the guillotine and cut people's heads off, especially pretty little white girls, let me just be perfectly honest. No. I like saying it, and sometimes I even mean it. But I'm Gemini. I can mean it and not mean it. Schrodinger's guillotine. Does style mean it or guillotine? Does style mean it or not? It's up to you. Understand?
See, audience. He's a teddy bear, really.
You could bring back.
It's just the facade for the show.
You could bring back stocks and flogging.
Public humiliation.
Well, the stocks are humiliation, but flogging really hurts, man.
Mm.
Yeah, so 20 lashes with a cat of 9 tails, that's going to settle everybody's nerves. You go, okay, all right, this I don't want. This is not funny.
Well, some people would see it as a badge of honor, so you've got to
they'll see it as a badge of honor until the first lick of that whip lands, and then they'll go, this isn't fun.
No. Okay, and we're getting to the top of the hour here, so I want to get back to the topic on point, which is Campbell's law. So
I had an entire story to share.
I know.
There's no time now.
We could have talked about Campbell's law in healthcare, which we touched on, about waiting lists, but that doesn't solve the right problem. About social policy, about we've got to get more people out in the community. But what does that mean? You touched on, I believe, crime rates, where you said the police would bring in, we'd have to arrest more people, but that doesn't again, that's just a single measurement and can be manipulated, as you've rightly already explained.
Not to mention data corruption,
subjectivity,
subjective distortions. Yeah. So it's actually, I believe it's inherent in human society. I think eventually an organized society will eventually fall foul of Campbell's law. This is why I said all society eventually will fall foul of Campbell's law. I don't see a way out. I don't think there is a way out, to be honest.
Is it because, again, it goes back to the accountability element? Is it because people feel accountable so they have to produce something and a single metric based on Campbell's law is
That's
enough?
part of it. That's part of it. Well,
It
the
doesn't
simplicity
actually
is
look,
the
yeah,
thing that is
simplicity,
the
yeah.
underpinning. The underpinning of Campbell's law is the simplicity of having easily digested, easily explained metrics.
Which aren't really of use if you
Which,
scrape under the surface.
unfortunately, aren't
No,
really of any use whatsoever.
no, no. Okay, so do you stand by your statement? Because I need you to wrap
I
up
do
here.
stand by my statement. I think it's that ultimately all societies will fall foul. All organized societies will fall foul of Campbell's law. It'd be wonderful to actually ask a social sciences student, and I don't mean student, I mean anybody who studies social sciences, professor, whatever. It'd be wonderful to ask them if they've ever tried to analyze Campbell's law in light of primitive societies, say village life. Because I don't think villages have time to sit around and start going, who's brought in 300 yams this month?
Mm,
You know, either you can eat or you can't, sort of thing.
yeah.
So that'd be wonderful. And that might give us an insight into maybe what can be done to mitigate the situation. Maybe. So maybe we should get a social sciences student,
Mm,
academic in here to help us out with that.
indeed. I mean, I'm not sure it's the doom of societies, but certainly Campbell's law does lead societies astray because people are putting all their emphasis on a single metric, which is not sensible. Although some businesses now have changed that. They don't look at one metrics. They do try and look at the holistic element, but they only point out, like, you've got the key KPIs, key performance indicators, and you've got a similar situation in other departments now. They're starting to bring in KPIs, which are key indicators across a broad spectrum of measurements. So as a whole, holistically, you can get a better picture rather than a single metric. So yes, I'm agreeing with you that Campbell's law can be a problem, but if you have the vision to see that you can't rely on a single metric, but actually look at a number of KPIs, then that will hopefully solve the problem and make it far easier. But there you go. Right. Unfortunately, we have reached the end of the show for another week.